We will start the candidate forum by introducing the candidates. On my right is Shane Perry, and on my left, Phil Rice. The third candidate, Derek Mitchell, will be unable to attend tonight. He has to work, and the forum is in the middle of his shift. We will begin with the first question. Mr. Perry, describe your background and community involvement.
Excuse me. First and foremost, I want to take this opportunity to thank the League of Women Voters and Jody Anderson for setting this up and everyone else for attending tonight. As she said, my name is Shane Perry. I am 35 years old with a large family. I have a beautiful wife, Nicole, and 7 amazing children. I grew up here in Anoka. I went to school here in Anoka. I went to Sandburg. I went to Anoka High School. I went to Anoka Hannibal Technical College. And eventually I went on and got my degree in radio broadcasting. Since then, I've done a lot of different work. I've worked with disabled adults. I've worked with disabled children. I've done a lot of younger educational stuff. I've also, for the last 7 years, been working in rare and unique coins. Prior to moving out of Anoka in 2003, I was involved in the community through the Boy Scouts as a chaplain aide, and with the community through the high school group called Revolution that would go to different communities and teach about issues that are facing every day, abuse, inequality, stuff like that. Right now, since moving back in 2016, I've been more focused on raising my 7 kids, but through them, they've inspired me to get more involved.
Mr. Rice, describe your background and community involvement.
Thank you. I'd also like to thank the League of Women Voters for having us here tonight. It's a great opportunity to share our thoughts and positions and where we'd like to see the city go. I am 58 years old and running for mayor for the 5th time. So I am the mayor of the city of Anoka now and running for re-election. I have lived in Anoka for the past 30 years. My wife and mother of our 5 kids is a lifelong Anoka resident, 3rd generation lifelong Anoka resident. And so we raised our 5 kids here. We're empty nesters now. Our kids went to Lincoln Elementary School and then to Fred Moore Middle School and then to Anoka High School, and they're off doing their things now. I coached a lot of sports raising those 5 kids. And I was a volunteer firefighter here in the city of Anoka for 20 years. So I have 14 years on the city council. 4 of those years were as a council member and the last 10 now as mayor. I appreciate being able to serve, and I hope I'll be able to continue that. Thank you.
Next question. What are your qualifications for serving, and why are you seeking this office, Mr. Rice?
Well, qualifications, that's a tricky word, because I think the qualification for running for office in the city of Anoka is that you live in the city of Anoka. I hope that those that run have more qualifications than that. I have worked my entire career in mental health. Currently, I'm a social worker helping people in case management. But really, the community involvement is, I think, what gets us qualified to work here. And so, having served in the community, having served on the council and as mayor, I think I am as qualified as anyone to continue to serve in that role.
All right, Mr. Perry, what are your qualifications for serving, and why are you seeking this office?
I'm running for mayor of Anoka because I love this city. I love the history, the charm, the sense of community. It's why I wanted to bring my children here, and my wife and I wanted to raise our family here. That said, there's always room for improvement. I want to not only work for the people, but with the people to solve some of the issues that we face on a daily basis. The homelessness, development, local living wage jobs. I want to make sure we have a stable economy, and I want to make sure that we can take care of some of the lack of amenities that we are missing in this city. My qualifications, through the years, I've done a lot of different things involved in communities, but looking at what I do now as an operations manager, I deal with different personalities, day-to-day issues, running meetings, time management, and I say this, if raising 7 kids doesn't qualify you to deal with new opportunities, becoming creative, and dealing with a whole lot of different personalities, I don't know what does.
Question 3, Mr. Perry, what are your short and long-term goals for the future of Anoka?
My short-term goals for Anoka are creating more programs to help the homeless in our community to get them to where they want to go. I want to attract greater retail and commercial opportunities while still supporting the local businesses. I want to create more living wage jobs, create activities for children and teens in the community, create better transportation options for our low-income and elderly community. I want to create an open door policy where the people in the city can feel like they have their voice, their opinions, their suggestions understood. Long term, I want to look at some zoning and some developmental things for where we need to put in amenities such as a grocery store, a bookstore, a pet store. I want to make more recreational activities down the road for the children who aren't involved in sports. Bottom line, I want to make Anoka the best city it can be by having safe streets, safe schools, and a safe community.
Mr. Rice, what are your short and long-term goals for the future of Anoka?
Well, short-term goals are pretty easy. We need to manage the budget of the city of Anoka. We need to be fair to people who pay for the work that happens in the city of Anoka. Our city staff has been and continues to be remarkable. They take ownership over the city, and we have to provide for them to do their jobs, but we also have to keep those costs down. When I coached sports, my goal always was that the kids would have so much fun playing this year that they'd want to play again next year. And so that translates to Anoka, that I want people to enjoy this community enough that they stay or that they come back. Long-term goals are really our housing stock. We have roads that need maintenance, and we have houses and housing that need maintenance. And so we want to provide the greatest opportunities in redoing our streets and then also in maintaining housing and providing quality housing.
Mr. Rice, if elected, what are your plans for all the lots for sale in the historic Rum River District?
Well, we have a couple lots in the historic Rum River District. They're big lots. You can see them if you look out the window. Our plan there, and I think I want to say that working with 4 other council members has been challenging at times, but a delight. And we work together and we have similar goals. And I mentioned housing, and so I'll talk a little bit about that on these 2 lots that we have in the historic Rum River District. We want to see owner-occupied projects there, and the city has invested a lot of money and time in those lots. It's only fair that what we get in return for that is a quality product that will continue to be a quality product throughout the years because it's an owner-occupied product. I don't know what's going to happen next to the parking ramp. I'd love to see a commercial building there, and we'll see, we've had for sale signs pounded in the ground for a while, and we'll evaluate those as people come forward.
Mr. Perry, if elected, what are your plans for all the lots for sale in the historic Rum River District?
I would say, in a lot of ways, I think that'd be a great place to put in affordable housing, a way to put people into nice homes, to bring more people into the city of Anoka. I also think it'd be a great opportunity, excuse me, to put in some commercial land and put in some of the amenities we need to bring in here. A commercial next to the ramp would be great. Why can't we have, a store there that we can bring people into the city for, to bring more people in here to boost our economy instead of constantly having to leave the city.
Mr. Perry, Anoka has developed a beautiful downtown with flowers in beds, pots, and hanging pots. Unfortunately, large crowds mean sidewalk messes that have not been cleaned in several years. What resources need to be found that would resolve this problem?
Previously, I spoke about finding ways to help the homeless in the community. And what I've found that's worked in other cities and something I'd like to implement here is creating jobs through the city where people who are down on their luck can have a job doing just that. They've cleaned up the city, they've made it a better place to be. We're constantly running different festivals and things like that throughout the city. We just had the food truck festival. And people who are currently unemployed or having a hard time finding a job could take that opportunity to earn an income instead of having to constantly go to a shelter or something like that to try and earn money for themselves and feel good about what they're doing.
Mr. Rice, Anoka has developed a beautiful downtown.
You don't have to read that whole question. I can get it from here. Well, I don't know about you, but I don't see litter on our streets. I don't see trash on our streets. On Sunday morning, we walked up to town to have breakfast, and I did see some rib bones. I picked up a beer glass and poured the beer out alongside a tree and threw the cup in the garbage. But if you walk out there today, I defy you to find any sign that we had thousands and thousands of people in town here just 2 days ago. The garbages are emptied, the streets are cleaned. I'm proud of the work that our city staff does, and I think they keep it beautiful. The flowers are blooming and they're watered daily. In reference to people that are down on their luck, the city does now offer work to people who are in our homeless shelter in town. And if they want to stay busy and they want to earn some money while they're here during the day, all they have to do is ask. And they're offered that through the city now. So it's a good program, and people should take advantage of it.
Mr. Rice, what is your favorite non-politicized activity?
Well, eating. I love to hunt and fish. I love the outdoors. I have been for the last 30 years doing that with kids. And so that's my favorite, is to get 1 or 2 or 3 or more of the kids and head someplace into the woods or the lake or wherever and spend some time there. I'm not much for sleeping on the ground anymore, I have to admit that. I now find a bed somewhere.
Mr. Perry, what is your favorite non-politicized activity?
As I stated earlier, I have 7 children, and seeing as my wife and we both work opposite shifts, I don't get a whole lot of time with them during the week. And I think for me, my favorite thing to do is spend time with them. There's nothing in the world quite like when your 4-year-old daughter comes up to you and starts yelling, "Daddy." It's the greatest feeling in the world. And to be with them and help them grow up and spend the time to teach my son to play sports, or my 4-year-old twins to read, or whatever it may be. Now, if I ever do get 15 seconds of alone time, I would say that outside of spending time with my children, reading is my personal favorite. That's my way of taking a vacation.
Mr. Perry, the traffic is a problem now, but even when 169 is done, on the Champlain side, the bridge creates a bottleneck. What is being done to add a bridge between Ramsey and Elk River to alleviate our traffic problems?
That is a great question. At this time, I could sit here and try and say something, but at this moment I can say that at this time I'm not aware of what is going on at the present moment to get that bridge put in place. I can say that I think it would be a very good thing to look into and to get it done in a timely manner. I think that we should definitely look into trying to, not just on 169, but throughout the city of Anoka, to make ways to make our traffic safer and our streets better.
Mr. Rice, the traffic is a problem now, but
I got this one too. When I was elected to the city council, I spent 4 years on the council. The first year that I was elected mayor, I got invited by a family that lives almost in the shadow of the Anoka Champlain Bridge over for lunch. I got there and they said, well, they'd lived here for 40 years and they're finally leaving. They're going to a retirement community and leaving their home there next to the bridge. And he said, 40 years ago, we were promised a bridge between Anoka and Elk River. And I just want you to continue the fight. Well, I've suggested things like that we should not let anyone from Dayton cross the bridge without paying a toll. If they don't want a bridge, then they should have to pay to come across the bridge that's here in town. That's not very practical. The roads do align for Armstrong and the new bridge out there to align with Brockton. There's been renewed talk that there could be a bridge there. I'm not sure that development would encourage that, but that's where I think it could happen, and that's what we've talked about for, well, 50 years now.
Mr. Rice, how do you feel about local authorities working, cooperating with ICE employees? To what extent, if any, would they work together if the decision was yours to make?
Start the clock. I don't know. Local authorities working and cooperating with ICE. Well, you've got me stumped. I think he was stumped on the bridge.
Yep.
I'm stumped on this one. You know, we work together in our own community. The nice thing about running for local office is I'm not a Republican, I'm not a Democrat, I'm not an independent. We're not affiliated with a party or a group. We work in the city of Anoka. Our goals are to improve Anoka and to make sure that while my grandparents handed down a city like this to me, I can hand down a city like this to my grandchildren. And if we continue to improve it, we continue to maintain it, then that'll be possible. We work together here in the city of Anoka.
Mr. Perry, how do you feel about local authorities working, cooperating with ICE employees? To what extent, if any, would they work together if that decision was yours to make?
My personal feeling is that I wouldn't want ICE coming in here, but if they basically, for lack of a better term, they had us in a position where we had to let them in, it would be the responsibility of our local authorities to work with the government as they're supposed to. My agreeing with it or disagreeing with it wouldn't change the law. That said, again, I wouldn't want anything like that to happen in the city of Anoka. I don't think it's a place where we should be going and using these systems to go through and systematically try and root people out of our city.
Mr. Perry, how do you see our small Two Rivers town moving forward? I moved to a quiet, dark neighborhood with wonderful yellow-hued street lights. Now I have neighbors with floodlights that go on with a passing car or stay on too long. Other neighbors have lights on outdoors 24/7. The children in a small Two Rivers town need the stars.
Can you read the first part again? I'm sorry.
How do you see our small Two Rivers town moving forward? It's a light ordinance question.
As pertaining to the light ordinance, I think light ordinance, just like any ordinance should be followed, but on the flip side, we also need to have in all of our communities and all of our neighborhoods respect for our neighbors. If a car goes by and your car light's on for, or your light's on for an extensive amount of time, excuse me, that is disrespectful to your neighbor. You have to make sure that whether it's a guy across the street, the person next to you, within our neighborhoods, it's the respect and the understanding for one another that is going to keep us as a good community. So I think with that said, it's something that we need to be mindful of, but the most important thing is making sure that we're understanding and respecting our neighbors as a whole.
Mr. Rice?
I'll say, Mr. Perry, that's a terrific answer. I think, I look at Anoka and say, well, we're a community that's almost fully developed. And lucky for us, we're not one of those communities that you see when you drive through other communities where you almost literally could reach out and touch the two houses that are built side by side. Anoka has some room. The lots are irregularly shaped, and there's mature trees and neighborhoods and identified neighborhoods and all of that. But the truth is, when the city goes to put up streetlights, we work to make sure that those lights are of a color that's not offensive, that the lights shine in the right direction, that if a house is near, that we have shields that we can put on so that it prevents that light from intruding. And I think that's the word we're really looking for here on light, is that it is not intrusive to people in their homes. And so my neighbor's got a light in his backyard that every time a moth flies by, that light turns on, right? And so I asked him, could you turn the sensitivity down just a little bit so that at least we aren't getting bugs setting those lights off? And I think that's the answer. The communities and the people work together, and we cooperate, and we enjoy life together.
Mr. Rice, what are your ideas to increase city revenues and or decrease city expenses?
Well, city revenue. We have some enterprise funds in the city, golf, and we have docks down here on the river that people pay annually to, and I think it's a terrific program that if you want access to the river, you can do that. You can have a boat on the river, drive down, park in the boat launch, hop on your boat and go out and enjoy the river. Those are available. We've added to them as time has gone forward. Our electric department is an enterprise fund that is remarkably successful. Our enterprise park and TIF districts and these sorts of things give us some of the money to work with as a city, as well as tax dollars. And so we try to do our best to keep costs down because we know that there's a limited supply of money to the city. We can't just earn more money, we have to tax people to get more money. And so by controlling costs, we limit taxes, but that's how we get things done, is by spending money.
Mr. Perry, what are your ideas to increase city revenues and or decrease city expenses?
I think Mayor Rice is right. I think the enterprise funds are fantastic. But I also think that, and this is just my opinion, over by the North Star tracks, we have some land over there that could be zoned for commercial growth, where we could put stuff like a daycare center, a laundromat, different things that we could use in this city. And what that does, that brings in commercial property, which pays a higher property tax. It creates more living wage jobs. It gets more people putting money into the community, and the taxes that we get from those kind of things will actually increase the revenue that we have in the city fund.
Mr. Perry, how would you balance the short and long-term goals of the community?
Clarification on that, sorry. the short and long-term goals, like as I've stated them before. Okay. As I stated before, it has a lot to do for me, not just with housing, but with the commercial property that we have within the city to bring in more local businesses. When we can increase what we have for the property taxes on the commercial properties, we can use that money to work towards our longer term goals, such as building, I don't know, an indoor park where kids can play all the time, not just 3 months a year, or they have some place where they can be safe and have fun. But we need to do any of these long-term goals that we have, and even the short-term goals, we have to have a lot of the funding for it. And with development and redevelopment, and using those funds, that's going to help us out a lot in the long run.
Mr. Rice, how would you balance the short and long-term goals of the community?
Well, the key, I think, to this question is the short and long-term goals of this community. The answer is you take them on one by one as they come at you. And our short-term goals usually are easy. We can or we can't. I have a friend who's famous for saying people feel guilty for one of two reasons. Either they are or they aren't. And the goals of the community are the same. Either we can or we can't. And so we work to get done what we can, and then we try to solve the problems if we can't get them done. Long-term goals, same thing. We really take them on as we can, but we plan for them. If we don't plan, long-term goals aren't going to happen by accident. They have to be realistic, and we have to plan for them.
We have time for one last question. What are your ideas on how to keep and maintain?
My wife.
Yes, honey?
What are your ideas on how to keep, Mr. Rice, what are your ideas on how to keep and maintain our historic homes along with our two historic home districts?
Well, Anoka is a beautiful, historic town. We have homes that are a showplace. And so we try, with historic districts, we try to get people to work together in a neighborhood to invest in maintaining in a way that demonstrates and shows off that historic value. If you look at our downtown area, it isn't a beautiful historic downtown because the city's been investing money there. That's been property owners that have been investing money there. And it works. We have, if we want to draw people, if we want to continue to be this beautiful town, then we have to make sure that people have the incentive to do that. And so in some neighborhoods, in some homes, we have an HRA, Housing and Redevelopment Authority, that can provide loans and can provide incentives to work to restore or to maintain their homes. Same with our downtown.
Mr. Perry, what are your ideas on how to keep and maintain our historic homes along with our two historic home districts?
The history of Anoka is one of the things I love. I mean, I get to go for walks with my kids, and I get to point out, wow, that was built in 1864, like 3 weeks before Dad was born. And, and you know, they get to see stuff that even I'm going, wow, that's incredible. I finally got to see the big white antique building. I lived here for 13 years, and I had no idea what was in there. It was fantastic. I think that to keep that historic, the historic underside of Anoka, or not underside, but prominent side of Anoka out there, volunteer work can be done, raising funds through just doing fundraising and neighborhood come together to make sure that they work on these things together. The HRA fund is fantastic, but you also have to have the people who want to just get out there, and there's a lot of people who want to see these historic houses and even landmarks kept in fantastic shape, and we can all do that if we just work together.
The candidates will now have 1 minute for their closing statements to summarize their qualifications and positions. Mr. Perry.
First and foremost, I want to thank everyone for their interest and for coming out tonight. It's been different. I've never done this before. And I think that, excuse me, a lot of my qualifications as far as for mayor has to do with being able to deal with people. It's what I do. It's what I've always done. Whether it be young children or the elderly in our community and everybody in between. Whether it be low income, high income, I know how to work with all different walks of life. I have a lot of experience with time management, running meetings, looking into different ideas on how to settle different topics, on how to look at different angles of a problem and try and deal with it. And I think that having a different view of how to deal with the issues that face our city is going to be something that's going to be much needed going forward. We need to have the opportunity to have different eyes, have different opinions, have different outlooks on what we can do to make our city better.
Mr. Rice, your closing statement to summarize the qualifications and positions.
Again, thank you all for being here. Thank you for being interested. Thank you to those who are going to watch these videos. I hope you can hear us. Thank you to the League of Women Voters for hosting us. I have been in a leadership position in the city of Anoka for the past 14 years. If you look at the city now and like the direction that it's going, then I ask you to vote for me. If you want to see change in the direction of the city of Anoka, then maybe you should look for someone else, because I plan on continuing to do the same things that I've been doing for the last 14 years, and that is to plan and make decisions in the best interest of the people that live in Anoka and for the city of Anoka. And so we try to help motivate people to do that. We control the budget, which is a big, big issue. It would be easy to do this job if we just raised taxes 15% every year. We could manage the streets, and we could provide for housing and all the sorts of things that we do. We do all of this with a smaller staff now than we had 14 years ago, and we do it all after you pay less taxes last year than you did in 2008. So in the last 10 years, we've also dropped taxes. Thank you very much.
I would like to remind you that the views expressed in this forum are those of the candidates, not those of the League of Women Voters. Sponsorship of this forum is not an endorsement of any candidate. League of Women Voters would like to thank you all for coming tonight and our internet audience for viewing. We would especially like to thank our candidates for being part of the democratic process by running for office and being willing to serve our community. The League has also researches issues important to our members and to the health of our communities. If you are interested in finding out more about what we do and how you can also make a difference, please pick up a membership brochure at the registration table and visit us at leagueofwomenvotersminnesota.org. Membership is open to all genders age 16 and older. You can find more information about candidates and about voting at minnesotavotes.org and leagueofwomenabcminnesota.org. Links to all the candidate forums and additional voter information can be found on the League of Women Voters Facebook page. Again, thank you for coming, and remember to vote on November 6th. Another candidate forum will be held again September 12th. Thank you for coming.